Howdy, with this video, I want to go over a sample essay. This one's located on the content page for the course under the material for essay number 1. But just want to go over it real quickly so you can kind of see why I chose it and why I'm using this to kind of represent the assignment. Just go over a few things. One, the basic MLA formatting's right. Have the student's name, my name, class and section number, the date. In the header, there's the student's last name and the page number. And the page numbers are being counted as we go along. That's what it should look like. You're going to see the title centered, and one thing to note, Common Sense was originally published out of a pamphlet, and that's why it's in italics. Your short story title should be in quotation marks with no italics, right? But the first paragraph is going to define the movement. He's using the Enlightenment. And by the way, Common Sense is not one of the topics you get to choose from, so that's why another reason why I like to use this this essay for an example. But the student's going to use good sources to define the Enlightenment. It's going to take more than one source. For most of your definitions, it's definition paragraphs. It's going to take more than one source to get a good definition of the movement and get good talking points that you're eventually going to reduce down to 3 talking points in your thesis. So he's using sources, making sure we understand he's using authoritative sources. Going to use quotes. Here's a good short quote. Here's a good example of using brackets within a quote. The brackets show a change or addition to a quote. Otherwise, quotes should be word for word, right? So these brackets show he added this maybe just for clarification, so we understand what the rest of the quote's actually saying. He has a citation there. He didn't really need Lancaster again because he has it up here in his introduction, but it doesn't hurt to double-cite it there. But notice he's using words like professor, historian. He's saying, hey, I got some authoritative people giving me, helping me with my definition. But notice the first paragraph, you're kind of piecing together these different components from different sources and trying to make it a nice, well-developed paragraph as you pull these things together. Another good example of use of brackets. One thing, be kind of careful with sexist terminology. We don't use mankind anymore. You might use humanity or people or whatever. But I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. You can read faster than I can talk. But notice he's just piecing together these different sources, kind of create a good narrative to get us a good definition going. The ellipses, the 3 dots, show that he took something out of the quote. So again, quotes should be word for word, and let's use the ellipses to show omission, or use the brackets to show a change to the quote. That's what's happening there. But it got a good definition going of the Enlightenment. It may take almost most of your first page to get a good definition going. It takes a little bit. The second paragraph should introduce the writer and the working that he's going to talk about. Generally want to get away from research in the second paragraph. You just want to kind of introduce it and make it pretty short. In fact, my complaint might be this is starting to get a little long, but it kind of keeps it pretty short here. But you're just going to introduce the work and then get to your thesis. Common sense includes elements of almost every central idea of the Enlightenment, including those of logic and reason, toleration, and liberalism. So we have his 3 points there. They come pretty much directly from his first paragraph. In fact, they come directly from his first paragraph, and that's very important. You just can't pull your 3 talking points out of the air. They have to come from the definition you've developed in that first paragraph. And that's not as easy as it sounds right away, because sometimes when you're researching, you don't get a lot of good talking points, particularly on the literary side of things. So it takes a little extra research sometimes with certain movements to get good talking points about the literary side of these movements or ideas. But he's got them there. So I'm expecting the next paragraph to talk about logic and reason. And that's what he's going to do. The very title of Thomas Paine's Common Sense introduced the pamphlet as a piece of Enlightenment work. And then he starts talking about the structure of it and things like that. Again, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. But he's kind of proving his point that logic and reason that work throughout common sense are good indicators that this is an Enlightenment work. He gives a long quote here. Notice the long quotes are tabbed over twice. Also, you end the quote with a period there, and then you give the citation. There's no period after the citation for long quotes. I'm not sure why MLA decided to do it differently, but they don't ask me. And make sure once you give a long quote, you comment fully on it. One complaint I might have about this essay is it's relying a little bit on, maybe a little bit too much on long quotes. But he tries to discuss them. But like here, you got this long quote and only maybe 2 sentences talking about it. You should be talking a little more fully about long quotes. If you're going to make me read this whole thing, you ought to be able to justify it within your essay. And again, quotes should support what you say, not say it for you. So the quote, once you give the quote, you want to tell me why it's supporting what you're saying. But again, once you start noticing these ellipses, he's taking something out of the quote, which is perfectly fine, but he has to show that with those ellipses. The second paragraph, he's going to talk about toleration. Excuse me. Making some gross old man sounds here. But I'm an old man, so I can do that. And focusing on this idea of tolerance, how it works through the Enlightenment. Generally, you don't want to be doing research in there. He asked me ahead of time if he can put this one quote in there, and it's short and it doesn't distract from what he's saying. He's not padding the paper, so I'm like, sure, put it in there. And then he's using long quotes again. Again, be careful about using too many long quotes. Want you to comment on them. And again, kind of my complaint maybe about this essay might be that he's relying on long quotes and not commenting on them enough. They're saying they're not supporting what he's saying, they're saying what he's saying for him. Then the last one is going to talk about liberalism. If you use a term like this, make sure you define it. Liberalism means something much different now than it did back in the 1700s, or in terms of studying history. So he gives a quick definition of what he means by that. That might be one thing I talk about when I look at your drafts. I'm like, you need to define this a little bit better. Or this word means something different than the way you're using it in some sectors. But here he's kind of getting away from the long quotes a little bit, relying more on short quotes. But doing a good job, supporting what he's saying, showing why liberalism represents the Enlightenment ideas. Make sure you bring your ideas back to the Enlightenment or whatever movement you're talking about. Don't just stop your paragraph in the middle of a thought there. The whole idea is to show why this thesis point represents that particular movement. So by the end of the paragraph, you should be bringing this idea back to the movement. Then he needs to have a good conclusion there. Complaining a little bit there in the sideline and the side commentary, that's a little short and could use a little more development. It has a good ending line there that relates back to his title. And has a good works citus page. And that's what a sample essay looks like. Again, it's not a perfect essay. If you turn this in as a draft, I probably complain a little bit about not commenting fully on long quotes. But good example of what the essay should look like. But he's fulfilling the requirements in each paragraph. He's got putting all the punctuation in there, things like that. So it's a good-looking draft. It's a good one for y'all to go by. Again, you're not going to copy this. Everybody's doing a different topic, so you can't just copy this word for word or anything like that, obviously. But if you have any questions about it as you're working on your essay, and again, it kind of depends on your which movement you're talking about how long this first paragraph is going to be. If you're going to get into existentialism, you can go to page 2 with your first paragraph. It takes a while to explain why it's hard to explain. And most definitions of existentialism begin with saying, hey, this is a hard term to define. And you're like, define it. I need this for my essay. But I'm going to get off here. I want to keep this one short. If you have questions, be sure to let me know. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.